Okay, welcome to a delayed start. Hartland Selectboard meeting on this snowy January 16th. First order of business, we have two sets of minutes from January 2nd, the regular minutes and an executive session. I've entertained a motion to accept them.
So moved.
Second. Thank you, Clyde. Any discussion?
Felt good to me.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you. Next item are the warrants, I'm sorry, the orders or accounts payable through today. Entertain a motion to accept them.
We paid the warrant orders through today.
Thank you, Clyde. A second.
Second.
Thank you, Tom. Any discussion? Get them.
It's pretty sparse this time around.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just for the audience, Martin is away, so we are the field here tonight. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on. I'd like to make two adjustments to tonight's agenda. We'll move two of the new business items up to do next. First, Brian Palmer with the Windsor County Sheriff wants some time with us. And then we'll move the Conservation Commission discussion up so that folks don't have to stay too late here. Are my colleagues okay with that? Okay, good. Okay, Brian, you're up.
Yeah, sit here, where's the best place?
That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right.
Just,
A little behind the eight ball here, but had kind of a weird day at the office, but a couple handouts. These are car stops in the town of Hartland. These are the calls for service over from July 1 until today. I think July 1 was the last time that Mandy had information, and that kind of breaks it out.
Okay, Brian, let me ask you to pause and just give some context. Brian is under contract with the town. Brian is representing the Windsor County Sheriff tonight. Brian, help me when we started that July.
It was in that time frame, I believe.
Yeah.
It was over the, it was well, the intersection, right around when the intersection was going on. So there's some patrols.
Okay. Thank you.
Hopefully there's enough of those handouts there. So I just wanted to, we try to meet with all our towns, especially around budget season, just to touch base and you know, have a conversation and kind of, you know, make sure that we're on the right path with, you know, services that we're providing. And I just want to kind of go over real quickly some of the numbers of calls for service in town since July. So overall, there was 583 calls for service, and that takes into account Vermont State Police, Windsor County Sheriff's Department, Windsor PD, Hartford, Fish and Wildlife, and Woodstock PD since July. Of those 583, 230 of those were traffic stops. So, and I can get this to you. I apologize for not having it on the sheets. I had kind of a medical emergency at the office today, and that put me behind. So of those 583 calls for service, just some things of note. You had 9 911 hangups. You had 13 alarm calls, so that could have been burglar alarms, all those type of things. 2 simple assaults. There was 6 animal complaints, 3 burglaries, 3 child abuse calls, 9 citizen disputes. There were 60 crashes. Some of those were on the interstate. You had 1 death investigation. There's 15 family fights / domestic. There were 17 fish and wildlife complaints, so that could have been deer jacking, those type of things. 7 juvenile problems, and that doesn't count. I wasn't able to fully pull Windsor and Hartford's information. They're on a different records management system, but we had the calls. But I would say that's probably a fair amount of the Windsor calls were probably juvenile calls at the school, would be my guess. There was 4 missing person complaints, 25 motor vehicle complaints. So that's either, that could have been maybe a suspicious vehicle driving up and down a road, or, you know, somebody speeding, those type of things called in. 1 stolen vehicle was recovered. There was 25 suspicious calls. So that's kind of a broad category. I didn't dive into them all, but it could have been, there was a couple issues of prowlers, people pulling in driveways, those type of things. 21 welfare checks. So that's, you know, you call up and say, I haven't heard from my grandma in a week, you know, can you go check on her, those type of things. So that was that.
Quick question. So those are calls.
Mhm.
Was there a response to each call, or did some calls not get a response?
So I didn't look at them all.
Okay.
I think that most of those, you know, some probably had, depending on the call, BSP will handle a lot of things on the phone. If it's something, you know, if they get 2 troopers, no one's around. The Windsor, Hartland, Woodstock, they came to Hartland.
Okay.
Ours are all, we responded. And like I said, majority of ours were traffic stops. We did 38 directed patrols in town, so 38 individual patrols. And then calls could have piled onto that. So I don't have the response on that. I think what we saw in the past, that it varied on the call. And I think that we, since July 1, have billed the town of Hartland right around $20,000. It's just 20,100 or something like that. So right around $20,000 that we've.
I'll take care of
it. We were here in October, handing out candy and those type of things, and so didn't know if anybody had any questions or any thoughts on that, or.
It'd be interesting to summarize the data that we used for the Policing and Safety Committee to see how the calls are doing from period to period. Any questions?
Not about the data, but my question is more about the next steps. Do we have quotes in from the towns that we asked for proposals, I should say?
We're not in a position to fully discuss that because we're still waiting on some of the municipalities and services to get a quote in. I know it's been frustrating for Ryan because your quote is in. So it's still a work in progress, Jim.
I guess just what's kind of the pulse? Do we think that there's other towns that are?
I'd rather not try to speculate on my part, because that's what it would be.
Okay. Last question, I'll leave it alone. Is it reasonable? I think Tom Yannerl is doing some of the work here.
Right. Yes.
Is it reasonable to do an update in 2 weeks? Next meeting?
I sure hope so. I did reach out to get an update, and that's what I heard, but it was coming back. Sure.
May I ask a question, please? For Hartland community information, what is best practice now? Who should we be calling to get the best response? You're still on board, right? You're still contracted with Hartland, Vermont State Police. So does it depend on what the type?
I think on an emergency type, I mean, so our contract is as needed, kind of Martin's been putting us on patrol a little bit here and there. I think really at this point, I would still call state police for any calls for service. It's been very sporadic, our
I would
hours.
call 911.
And I'm sure.
It depends on,
Yes, yes.
depends on the
yes,
type of call.
But I'm just, I was just wondering what is best practice.
Yeah, I think, not, no, you can't know which agency to call, right? You've got to call 911 and let them run this issue.
On an emergency type call, if it's a dog running loose, I would call VSP directly type thing.
I think that's the best thing. Ryan, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Appreciate keeping it brief and to the point and working up the summary data.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Any idea pushing forward? I mean,
You're just asking the same question Jim was asking. I hope soon, because I want to have a firm number before town meeting.
yeah, well, I know, I mean, no one else has put in a bid, right?
I'm not answering that.
Okay. Well, fair enough.
I think you're also I want both of us to be careful here. You're on the select board in another town, which we've spoken to, and you're representing the sheriff's department. So that's why I'm saying I think we need to leave it alone for right now. And Tom Yennerall has been working to get the answers, so to get everything in.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
For one procedural issue, I don't recall, did we ask for public comments before we went into?
We haven't.
Okay.
We haven't. Should I continue to mess up and just go on to the next item and then come back to it?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for
Thank you, Ryan.
trusting. So we will go to Gordon and Peg and whoever wants to speak to the Conservation Commission request.
Do you have Rob Andrew on Zoom? He was
I don't see him on
supposed to email me and said he want to venture out and be joining on Zoom.
May have saw it way down here.
Speak of the devil.
Fine.
For
Just tell him.
Just in time, right on time.
It's quite the dramatic entrance there, Rob.
So if everyone is going to speak, if you just want to move your chairs closer, because people online are going to complain, because this is not that sensitive.
Up to the front.
Whatever you're comfortable doing.
We're just getting started. We've moved, we rearranged the agenda a little bit so that you guys could go.
Okay, so,
Just hand these out, just so, there are.
so last year, the legislature passed Act 59, which is also called the biodiversity bill. And the goal there is that we're trying to conserve 30% of the state by 2050. That's pretty ambitious given what's already conserved. But, in Hartland, the best piece of land available for conservation at the moment is the Pole property, which is very, very close to the village center here. It's about 75 acres. And things have been underway. The Upper Valley Land Trust has been negotiating with Mr. Cole for several years now. He wants to conserve the land. The land trust wants to conserve the land. We want to conserve the land. But it's a complicated project because what we're trying to do is, in addition to conserving some of the land for recreational and agricultural purposes, we want to have part of the land potentially for community housing. And so the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board is interested in this project and or has been interested in the project. They would provide some funding, but it will require funding matches from the town and from various other sources. So what we are proposing, the Conservation Commission talked about this at a meeting both on January 4th and on January 10th. What we're proposing is to ask the select board to put a warrant article on the town meeting warning that would ask if the voters want to direct the select board to set aside $100,000 from the capital reserve fund to be used for purchase and conservation of this piece of property. If the project falls apart, then that money never leaves the conservation or the capital reserve fund. But if it does work out, then that money will go toward this purchase and conservation. So that's kind of the broad view of what we're trying to do. And maybe Gordon or Peg would like to talk about a little more about the project.
It'd be nice if you would explain the map.
Yes, okay, so I'm Peg Merritt.
Yes, thank you. Okay.
I'm Peg Merritt, and I'm the Vice President of Conservation at the Upper Valley Land Trust. And as Rob has so succinctly described, we have been options to purchase this property for a number of years now, and just recently obtained an option to purchase, and that provides us with time to raise funds in the community to make this happen. So shared a map in this, so the whole property is a number of acres. It's 80-something acres. But the portion that the land trust wishes to purchase is outlined in yellow. So if you follow the yellow line around, that is the portion of the land that we seek to buy. The landowner would be retaining 11 acres. It's in blue there. That includes all the buildings and the pond and infrastructure there. The land that we would be purchasing and protecting is bare land. And it includes this agricultural field that has been used for hay. There's a farmer leasing that now, and we would continue to engage that farmer so long as they're interested in doing the same. It's also used in the wintertime by the Hartland Winter Trails, wonderful trails there that are most of the easy, sort of the place where people begin, and they can start out and it's flat and it's great for teaching children. Andrea can attest to all of that. We would purchase it and place a conservation easement on it. Most likely the holder of that conservation easement would be the state of Vermont through the Vermont Housing Conservation Board if we continue to own it. There are other ways that this could evolve as well. We could transfer it to the town if that became an interest of the town, subject to a conservation easement. But right now, we will be the entity purchasing it. Rob mentioned this community housing piece. This particular parcel is very unique because it has an area that was already disturbed by, there's a borrow pit, as I understand it, when I-91 was built. And That area now is accessed off of Route 12. It has a right of way across a piece of land. And so it has its own access, and it's very private. Once you get in there, it's actually quite flat. And when we've been exploring this for a number of years with other partners, including Twin Pines Housing Trust and the Vermont Housing Conservation Board, that area was as being the area we will evaluate and hold aside for housing options at this point.
Is that the dotted line?
Yes, that's outlined a dotted line. You know, at this point, it hasn't been surveyed, but you know, we've walked kind of the, you know, if you were to be in there and draw lines just outside of the bounds of some trails that are up there, staying towards the, you know, there's a ledge up there. You know, it maps out 5 to 7 acres in there. What else can I say? There's a view easement area here that's slashed. Just want to describe a little bit there. This is a request of the landowner. These would be covenants that would come in our deed that would, where we are agreeing not to put any types of structures in there in the future. A conservation easement would allow for some recreational structures, but we've agreed not to put them in that location. A conservation easement allows for agricultural structures, but we would not put them in there. So you get the idea. That's an area that is certainly in view of the landowner, and it was their request that that be the case. We can continue to manage that for agriculture and keep it open. None of that changes, but we would not be focusing recreation in there or any structures. The agricultural field, you can see that it says approximate location of a trail that would be there between our April 15th and November 1st. This is another covenant that would only be in place during the continued ownership of Mr. Cole. Just that this is the pattern that has been in place while he has owned it, and that is to you know, during his ownership, the use of the trails is just in the wintertime. They're not year-round, but we would like to extend it to year-round use. And in this field, keep the trail to the edge. That's better anyway, from a management perspective. It keeps it out of the hayfield. But I just wanted to make that clear here to everyone that that would be the expectation.
And then that would link to the existing trail system, is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
yes, it links right up.
Okay.
Yep. It links right up there. So, other pieces here, the terms of the agreement, again, allow us to have some time. These options are really nice because they provide us with some time to raise funding, to get an appraisal, to raise the funds needed to buy the land and protect it.
How much is that?
So we have an appraisal now that's been done that we've shared with the landowner. It just came in. Haven't had an opportunity to discuss it with them, but as far as this budget goes, what I can say, and so I don't know the exact value we will fall on. Our land trust cannot pay above market value, so that's why this appraisal was completed. But the amount that the town would put in, should this proceed, this warrant article, would be 25% or less of the full budget. So it's still, I think, a good investment. And we'd be seeking the rest of the funding from the Vermont Housing Conservation Board, other foundations, and quite a bit of fundraising, philanthropic folks in the community.
And how long is your option good for?
The option goes into next fall, but we'll have, you know, it's really just to, and we'd love to close before then, but, you know, typically with these, you know, it's to hold it off the market while we pursue these grants, but at this point, we would ask the landowners to extend it should we meet some milestones along the way, and we have that built into the agreement as well. So, just to highlight what all the benefits would be to the community, we would be preserving some of the rural character of Hartland. This includes scenic hayfields and views off of Queechee Road. It includes agricultural lands. This is just, there are many options for that land going forward. Our organization actually has had quite a bit of experience now with food pantry gardens. There's food security questions in all communities these days, particularly since COVID, and that would be aware of, and it's been our mission to try to ensure that if a community, if we have land that could support a food pantry garden, and if there are volunteers to work that garden, that those could be considerations.
Sure, there is a community garden already
Yeah,
in Foster Meadow by the library.
okay, great, so, but this is in perpetuity, so who knows?
You might explain kind of garden that
Oh,
LT does.
oh, it's different,
quite
yes.
different.
Okay, so the community gardens that we run, I don't know anything about this other garden, but the community gardens we run are run by volunteers. And we provide all our food to Willing Hands or to the Claremont Food Kitchen, Soup Kitchen. So, it's all just going to help with food need.
Yeah, I think we all know Willing Hands is very active in the area and doing good things.
Yeah, trails for walking and hiking and cross-country skiing, again, because this is really securing this forever. So, there may be other places where people walk in town. Those places might not be as secure as what this would be. This is within walking distance of the village. Sidewalk goes to Bishop Lane.
So if this is not conserved, you can go for private sale and those trails are technically done.
Anything else?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, if this doesn't happen, then I see a developer potentially creating a lot of housing and the trails being gone. And when Peg mentions trails, I would like to say also that I've always explored a really good way. You see a lot of people out walking on Lover's Lane, for instance, from Four Corners up to the Queechee Road area. And there's a nice loop, but that loop incorporates the Queechee Road, which is really dangerous to try to walk on. So having this property allows for creating a safe access to the village from Four Corners Village to Three Corners Village. So you could easily come down Lover's Lane, access through the property, and come either to Bischoff Lane or at least through what we call the sand pit area and gain access to the Three Corners, and also off from Merritt Hill Road too. So that would allow people who do like to walk loops to make a really nice, safe walking area. And we would like to work with the land trust, that being Hartland Winter Trails, in creating 4-season trails. And so that people, even in the winter time, would have a separate area to be able to come through with bicycles or just on feet that wouldn't affect the grooming that we're doing for the Nordic skiing and snowshoeing.
What's the state of the, I'm sorry, Jim, go ahead.
If the house, like how many units of housing are you talking about, and what type, and will that interfere with the trails?
Yeah, I don't think that hasn't been fully explored yet. That's part of the feasibility. So what would happen is we would secure the land, and then they would have a period of time to explore those options within that area. It is constrained by the size, of course, and septic and water capacity as well.
So assuming we have the land, what vote does the town have on, the scope of the housing, type of housing?
They don't.
No vote?
I think we've had this discussion with Twin Pines. It's community housing. I would love to sort of see some employee housing. And I'm a real fan of having mixed age housing, so the younger people can help the older people and vice versa.
But you would.
But I think, Peg, unless I'm wrong, it's really to be determined.
That's to be determined in the future and would not fall on our shoulders. We would provide, essentially have the same option agreement with Twin Pines so they can purchase the 7-acre area for their uses after they've explored all options. If that doesn't happen, anticipating other questions, we would explore other options with the community for that space.
But Phil, Twin Pines usually builds things that are 20 units or more, isn't that?
And that's what they've been talking about.
Isn't that, I mean, we need some sort of a number, so,
Yeah,
I mean, it would be something like that.
right, yeah, yeah.
Well, that's not gonna work on that site without sewer and water. You're not gonna get 20 units on a site like that without sewer and water.
No, they would be.
They can't
putting
support the
in a
density.
system
Yeah.
for all of that. They would have to explore that.
I also would hope and expect that they would work with Hartland Winter Trails to incorporate at least an access through that area.
But is there a guarantee for that?
I mean, there's a lot of data to show that creating community housing areas with trails incorporated into it is really successful and very, enjoyed by the community itself.
I agree with you. I'm just, wondering if the housing goes in, can they say, hey, listen, we don't want you coming over this land?
Yeah, it's not a contingent, so we can't make what we provide to them contingent on that. There is another option that we would explore if that couldn't be used. I mean, we do envision that area would be accessible by the folks who live there to the trails. That's what makes it so appealing as well. So there would be that connection, whether or not you can park there and use their parking or anything like that. We can't provide that information today, but there is other foot access at the very least and a potential. There's a tiny bit of frontage that could be explored, it's a little slopey and you all know better than I, but there is another little piece of frontage there that does offer some potential for another way to access the property. And we would make sure that that is an option available in the conservation easement to explore that for the public and for public access.
So it appears like now the access is going through Mr. Lyon's property. Is that what that sort of candy cane looking line is? Is that a
Yes.
right of way?
That property, as I understand, and I've seen the survey for it, that 1-acre piece was purchased with a right of way
That the town has.
that Mr. Pohl benefits from.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, not the town, it's the whole.
Just to set some context, later this evening, we are discussing articles. We're not approving any articles tonight. We have $150,000 for the intersection lighting. We hope some of that money will come back with grants, but the first pass for grants was not successful. We have approximately 100 to 140,000 for policing that the town has decided they wanted. And now we have $100,000 here out of a reserve fund of, I was corrected the last time I said 480 or 490.
Somewhere in that ballpark.
You aren't thinking of taking policing out of the capital reserve fund?
No, you're correct, but it's an impact
Yeah, of course.
on the town. And I'm leaving the school side out of it, and we're all hearing not really good things coming from that project.
So moving these,
I'm very aware that Peg has stressed that the importance of correct me with the phrase, a community supported project. And that the amount that's being asked for is 20 to 25% of the expected total. I certainly wish this could have happened sooner, because I don't know anyone that doesn't want the land, and a capital campaign within town to sort of raise that money would have been, I don't know how much we could have raised, but it could have gone toward that amount on that part. I do worry about the dual aspect that the Vermont Housing and Conservancy is looking for. Tom mentioned some of the obstacles that are there. That part. So I'm going to be quiet and let you folks.
So I think this is a great idea, but I think you're late in asking us to do this personally. You know, using the policing. So we set up a committee this summer. We asked citizens to help us. We did basically a master plan and the like, and we're now going to have an article for town meeting to say we want to raise, and we haven't come up with the exact amount,
Yeah.
but we're not even putting it in our budget because it's such a large amount. What I would suggest you do is, you know, the primaries are coming up in August. I mean, there's going to be plenty of other times for us to vote on this, is that to go out, develop a master plan for this. This is pretty iffy. I know in talking with people, one of the reasons why they really like this property, one is we certainly want to preserve the trail, but two was housing. People were really, really interested in housing. I work in housing. And so I just think we need to get people together and to talk about these things, but I am uncomfortable just throwing this out. And secondly is, if it's defeated, then we're kind of in trouble. But I think if we do the work and we get the community involved, I don't think it would be. But tonight, I won't vote in favor of just putting this on without really knowing what you're going to do with the property. I think what you have here is a concept, but I think generally there's usually sort of a master plan and there's some outreach done and so on. So that's just my feeling, but I just think spend some time and come back to us, to the voters, and you can do an article or something like that when we have, you know, like I say, in August, there's a primary. I don't know if that messes you up. You said you had till November.
So just one clarification. They would have to get signatures in order
Yeah,
to have a special meeting.
That's fine.
To do an.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
So it's a
right.
little different. But,
Well,
yeah.
right.
Okay.
Well, Thomas, I would say that, you know, preserving this land is for the community. And what better way to help support and fund it is from some assets that are sitting in the capital reserve fund. And it's not depleting that capital reserve fund, it's taking just a portion of it. And this was being an ask by the Conservation Commission to only use those funds if this project does move forward. So it's not going to just go somewhere else. It's specifically for this project, per my understanding. And if somebody doesn't step forward and take that first step, then we could lose this property. And I don't think I could live here anymore if I saw that place developed and the trails gone. So, I mean,
I totally understand what you're saying, but it's a week before the articles have to be set. Where were you 2 months ago? Where were you 3 months ago? There's been zero discussion prior to tonight. I'm a new select board member, but since I've been on board, this is the first time publicly I've heard about this. And again, I support this. I
does-
support this project.
The nature of, I can talk to the timing of this, the nature of this being a land transaction makes it a bit challenging, because to go into a public meeting or to disclose this publicly before we had an option agreement signed, there were certainly many people here in this room and others who walked the land in 2020, walked the land in 21, while we continued to work with the landowner to get them on board, and to get the agreement in place. Until we had the appraisal, we didn't know what kind of number we were dealing with or whether we could even go forward. So that's a bit of the timing that's been delayed up until now. We now know, and we also know that, we have a short period of time, a window of time in which to try to raise this funding. When we go to the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, they want to know what type of, what is the support of the community? How is the community showing that support? They're showing that support in many of the projects that we do through a vote of confidence to move forward should this happen with some funding behind it. That's where we are right now. If we go, and that type of support from the town and the community also helps us in our fundraising. We can say the town of Hartland, the town of Norwich, whoever the town is that we're working with has agreed to put this funding in. We need your extra dollars to get there.
Somebody has to take the first step. And an example a little bit is that I stuck my neck out back in August to, at the tax sale auction, acquire a 2-acre parcel that I hope will connect into this at some point and maybe be a future for Heartland Winter Trails. But I don't know. I went to that tax sale auction. I had literally 5 days to do my homework and my research, and have stuck my neck out for that as a possible future. And unless I did that, the future would be gone. It wouldn't be in my hands to control that future or have any say in that future.
The other source of some urgency in this is Mr. Pohl's health
Yeah.
is not great. And should he die without having this resolved, then Peg, what happens? Do you?
Well, our option agreement is to apply to successors and assigns, but it will make it very difficult for, the whole thing's gonna go into a probate process and get delayed. And so it is very critical that we are moving ahead as soon as possible.
But if I understand correctly, that's been a ticking time bomb for a few years now.
So it sure
We
has,
don't- we
it's
don't
only
know,
become
what's
more
happening.
Yes.
And
urgent.
I'm happy to say that our aging and Heartland community nurses have been helping Mr. Pohl.
So when do you plan on going to VHCB for funding?
This spring, yeah. They actually will be likely coming out for another site visit next week. We've been in communication with them in the last week or two about the appraisal and about, our partnership with Twin Pines, and they are still very supportive of the project, and they want to try to see what they can do to help support a housing option and to evaluate.
But they're probably gonna wanna see a housing option, right? Because there's no rare and endangered or habitat or whatever related to this outside of the ag, right? That would be their biggest.
Not that I know of in there, but it still provides great recreational value to the community. Yeah. And we would leave, so should the housing not go forward, I mean, again, how we're envisioning it, the funding is gonna go towards buying the land and securing it, providing an option to Twin Pines or other housing entity to explore housing in that area. We will already have funding from VHCB by that point. We will have secured the property, and we'll leave the option open. Our organization will be requesting from VHCB that, other options be available there. It could be housing, it could be, Twin Pines also has a a home buyer program as well. A different type of housing could go in there and still provide housing for the community.
So I'm not a big proponent of spending money, but I am a proponent of letting the voters decide. Right. I do worry though that, that whatever money we spend, we've got about $6 million worth of infrastructure projects over the next 4, 5, 6 years. Only about 3 million to cover it, if that, right? So there's, everything we spend, does impact something down the road.
I would say that this project is quite a bit different than previous projects that have been funded partly by the town, including our property on Garden Hill was partly funded by town funds from this capital reserve fund. Rob had quite a long list, but what was the Withington Farm in North Hartland was conserved some money from the town to that.
So if I'm correct,
10 acres.
the recent funding has been much more modest, picking up some of the legal fees for the Howe property and things like that.
Yeah, I think in 2010, there was $45,000 that was taken out of capital reserve.
But my point was that has all gone to land conservation with not all these huge benefits that this property represents for the town, because this town likely will end up owning this property. And it's right here in the village where it's very important to happen.
And what is the expected management fee that you would be asking
It
for?
depends on who owns it. Certainly our organization, we have a calculator we use for our own management fund. That would be part of the fundraising piece that we do. That would be through dollars, either VHCB will provide some portion of that stewardship management fund, but we'd be fundraising for the remainder. And then the town, should the town own it, they could establish what their own fund is. The types of activities that are going on there right now is this leased hay land that could continue, I'm not sure. And certainly we would be considering engaging in a lease with the Hartland Winter Trails, and maybe it's more than just winter trails.
When you say lease,
Yeah.
a $0 lease or?
That depends. I mean, if the benefits are, it's how you measure the benefits. For our organization, if we want to keep those fields open, it may be a $0.
Right. I mean, there's no charge today, right? You're using the land.
No,
Right.
Yeah.
And the risk is if we don't do something, we lose those trails forever.
Yeah.
I get it.
yes.
There would be great benefit to our organization to having a trail organization maintaining it, but the lease is just there to create an agreement and sidebars.
Yeah, it also gives Heartland Winter Trails, if we ever write for any grants, if you do have a lease, then it makes it much more concrete as far as getting grant funds to do work on that piece of land.
So what if between now and town meeting, you have at least 2 public meetings to discuss this?
I think that's a great idea.
Would you guarantee that you would do that?
Sure, we could do that.
And really work
I think
hard to engage the town on
Yeah, I
this?
think if we put this on the warrant without doing some campaigning for it, it will not pass. And so the more that we can get out there and have public conversation about it, talk about the benefits of it, I think that would be really important for this effort.
This project has seen multiple steps over the course of the last 5 years, and I'm sure you're not at all aware of all of those steps and stages, but I think it's been 5 years since I started the process with the landowner and the Upper Valley Land Trust. And this is just another moving step that has a stone in the brook that we need to be able to step on and secure our footing. And we need your help to be able to do that. And if you do allow this to be placed as an article, then of course, folks here are going to go out and communicate with the community and educate folks and let them know what we're trying to do.
An observation and then a question. I mentioned this to Peg today. I was with a number of Hartland folks last week and was talking about this and talking about the value of the proposition. And I mentioned the capital reserve, and the person immediately said, well, that's only going to raise our taxes. So don't shake your head. This is what the person said.
Okay.
And I think that goes to what Tom is saying. There has to be some information out there that makes it very clear all the pieces and what the impact is for town on that part.
But I think that's fair. It's not gonna raise your taxes next year, but it will someday when we need a hundred
When
thousand.
we start to replenish it. Yeah, exactly. Gordon, I know you have a passion about forestry and trees. How long do you think this brown spot is going to take to recover?
Oh,
It's really a disaster area.
it's too bad that happened. But it does give it a fresh start for a good forest to
Or
grow.
hardwoods or softwoods or whatever.
Yeah, I think, how many years has it been?
Maybe about 4 or 5.
Is it clear cut?
I think it was 5, it was about the
It
time.
was logged in a really rough fashion. Is that a good way to describe
It
it?
looks like it looks almost like a clear cut.
That's all I think.
Yeah,
From this
I'm
picture.
walking back there.
it's a mess, and they left tops down and the whole 9 yards.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's how you regenerate a forest.
Well, it's not quite the way I would do it.
Well, I just went through a talk
I
this
agree.
last week with someone
I
from the
think,
state of Vermont.
20 years from now, even 10 years from now, it's going to come off.
We don't know. Okay.
Yeah. Trees are on a different time schedule than people.
They look better as they get older.
Well, that's true. But the life of a man and the life of a tree do not mesh well at all. But anyway.
When you have a disturbed area like that, the potential for invasives coming in and taking over is pretty great. And
Yeah.
so managing, to try and control that,
Yeah.
I think is really,
Yeah, is there a honeysuckle moving in already?
I assume there's honeysuckle and barberry.
Yeah.
That's probably everything.
Is coming in.
So,
And,
Peg, I have another question. So in light of what we might be contributing to this effort, can we have something in the agreement where we can have some say over the housing and basically be more active?
I can't answer that.
But you can have it in the
Twin
agreement.
Pines,
Well, I'm not necessarily thinking we're gonna go with Twin Pines. I mean, if they decide they don't wanna do this because, as I said earlier, I just don't think we're gonna get the density that they
Yeah.
probably want us to do. But we may wanna do something else.
Yeah,
And so
I,
who would we have to work? So say it's not Twin Pines.
yeah.
And would we assume that it would be this parcel as identified now?
Yes, it's not gonna be anywhere else. That's the only place where we would allow.
And it would then allow for housing if that is the desire of the town
That's
or
what we
whomever.
would see.
So that would be in some kind of an agreement?
Again, the only reason I pause is I need to discuss this with the Vermont Housing Conservation Board, who would be providing the funding. But it's my goal to have a discussion with them about that, what if? What if it's not Twin Pines, what would that look like? Because they are the entity who continues to want to explore the housing with us.
How much funding are they doing versus the Upper Valley Land trust.
Land trust. Well, at this point, we would seek a grant. I think they're capped at 150,000. So then we're
That's the
fundraising.
housing, that's the housing piece.
Oh, no, no,
No.
that's for the concert, that's for the purchase of the
Purchase
property.
of it.
But the Upper Valley Land Trust is looking to contribute 150 towards the purchase.
No, to different organization.
Vermont Housing Conservation Board, 150, town,
Which is a state
maybe up to
organization.
100. And then we would be fundraising with the community for whatever else, and
Okay, so you represent the land trust and you're gonna go, it's
Yeah.
gonna be fundraising versus. state
Yeah,
money.
yeah.
Okay.
yeah, and if there's another foundation or a grant that we can acquire, we'll explore it.
Right. So you're very good at raising money.
Oh, we're hopefully, yeah, we will, we've got a great team here building.
So if that area won't accept housing,
Mhm.
septic or whatever, will the state want their money back?
No, I mean, we would not go into this unless we have a contingency with them that, the way I understand these things have been structured in the past, if it's very difficult to pull these all together at one time, have the housing piece all ready to go at the same time the conservation piece is. So we are acquiring it and we're leaving this area open for housing exploration. Some housing should be able to fit there. Some, if it's not 20 units, maybe it's a different number of units. But I think some housing could go there.
Well, there was a local entrepreneur who owned that at one time, and he couldn't site houses in there.
That's all.
Yeah,
And what was the?
couldn't get proper sewage.
Pretty gravelly, isn't
It's
Now,
right
it's
on.
too permeable,
it? Well, you can fix that.
Well,
and it sits right over an aquifer.
yeah. Well, the good thing is I understand that there are many new options in engineering for
Right.
septic systems along brooks and other places.
I'll ask you a
Yeah, that was
question.
40
Peg.
years ago.
Do you think that the land trust but it might make a lot more sense to pump the sewage up out of there and have the septics somewhere else on this
Yeah,
property, outside of this dotted line?
Yeah.
I don't quite.
It has come to our attention that septic is not the issue. It's
Yeah, I
it's
think
water.
it's the water, but right now, just the,
And Gordon, don't ask me to explain that, but a septic can be amortized, built for however many units and amortized and work for 20-something years, 25 years, where water systems are complex, and that's the part. I can't remember why we ruled out that small entry at the very north edge of the property on Route 12.
yeah.
We walked that, Gordon. I can't remember why we said that would not be good for housing.
Over in there, it's kind of wet.
It's very wet.
Yeah,
So once you get up over that first esker, I think it is an esker ridge,
yeah.
and then drop back down, it gets wet. Now,
That's ocean water problem.
that's said,
Reservoirs.
you could maybe, that's why I hold out, there could be maybe that's, you rise up on that esker and you put a little parking area there. Again, these will be things that will be disclosed, and our, pitch to the HCB is that we want to leave all options open for recreational access and for this housing piece. And if it, takes putting the septic up above, so be it.
So
So long as it's not impacting
the
conservation.
potential site as identified here, could that be moved at all to?
That's what I'm saying. Could it be moved in?
Well, is there flexibility in that as far as where the housing site is? As long as we're away from ag and so on, could it be moved a little bit more to the north if that would make it more conducive for housing, for instance?
It's
I-
in,
Again,
it's in a bowl.
I'm just, I know, I get that.
I think we run into access issue. This was chosen too because of the, you have a
Yeah.
roadway right there, driveway.
Okay, I feel like need to ask for closing comments here. We have, as I said, later this evening, we're going to talk about articles in general, and then there's likely going to be a special meeting on the, I think the 27th, to make a final decision on those articles. Are there any questions, Clyde, Jim, Tom?
I think we asked a lot.
Any additional?
It's good to grow up.
I would say that I understand Tom's concerns about not doing it too fast and making it not work, but I don't really think that's the case. And I think if it did fail, we could try again. And I liked your comment, Jim, because I have heard the same thing, that this really isn't a select board decision, it's a voter decision. But voters that don't have the backing of the select board is not a good situation at all. So what we're really shooting for here is everybody on board with it, voters. And I think the idea of working hard to get the town interested in this between now and town meeting would be really effective. So I guess it's your guys' decision, but I'd like to see it on there morning.
Okay. Jim, is there anyone?
Peg also
Okay.
expressed
That's
the timeliness of
Although
this
there's
too,
something here.
with Mr. Paul, and I think that if Mr. Cole passes away, it goes potentially to an entity that will want to gain as much from this property as they can. So you may see a lot of housing, and it may be all over the fields and all over the property.
I understand your concern, and I have that deep concern with our town plan not being flexible enough for large landowners that are property rich and have no income whatsoever. We are on the cusp of that change, not just here, which would be a very visible place, but throughout town. So it's really come and talk to the planning commission, and we need some changes. Not just on the, this is a different exception, but that threat that you see is very real in town.
We have questions online.
Well, first question is, if everybody could just sign in, so I can send that in for the minutes. And, in some cases, maybe we represent. There are other questions, but I think there's about a backlog of 13 in chat, but maybe what we can do is just open to public comments
Okay,
as the next topic and let people who are.
yes, that's fine.
Questions.
Okay.
Is that related to this though? I mean,
Yeah, some of them.
well, I think we have the expert here. We should, I don't think we should be doing it without them here. If there are questions about this project, why wouldn't we have the people who are representing the?
Yeah, no, I mean, it could be our next topic, is open on
Sure.
microphones.
Oh, I
So don't leave.
Yeah, you can't leave.
Don't anybody go anywhere. So I can do that now with the.
Yeah, so let's go back to the top of public comments.
Okay, so for those following along at home, we're going to open up for public comments, which can include the topic that we just discussed if you have questions. But I'm gonna, maybe you can raise your hand if you have a question and I can unmute you. Okay, don't see any hands raised, but I'm not sure if that's a feature or a bug. Mute everybody.
There's something. Kurt's got his hand up.
It's not what. Maybe I don't have any bullet.
Go ahead, Kurt.
There we go.
There you go.
I am very curious, confused and curious, right from the beginning about exactly who, Peg represents. Besides being the vice president of the Conservation Commission.
You gotta speak up, Kurt.
Actually, I think my stomach is on my microphone.
Okay, I think I understood. Peg, do you want to talk about what the effort later?
I represent Peg Marins, and I'm here on behalf of the Upper Valley Land Trust. And our organization works in 45 towns in the Upper Valley to protect land. We work with towns, we work with the state, we work with individuals to protect lands that are important for conservation. When I say we would own it, right now, the way that this is structured, our organization has the agreement, with the landowner to buy the land. We will buy it and secure it under this plan. But we are open to discussions with the community and with the town about potential town ownership of this piece of land if that's of interest to the community. We would then hold a conservation easement on it to ensure that it's protected. If we own it, a third party will hold that conservation easement.
I understand that now that you've answered the question. However, the next question is, if the taxpayers are ultimately putting up the 100,000 in the purchase arrangement, how is the town protected?
The town would be protected through the terms of the conservation easement. I assume, how do you know it's protected? The funding is there for the purpose, as I understand it, for this conservation effort, should it go forward. We would be bound by the same types of restrictions and uses should we get a grant from the state, from the Vermont Housing Conservation Board. It could only be used to purchase and conserve the property.
Yes, that's not exactly what I asked. I was thinking more about a lien.
Lien. What would be the purpose of a lien?
Well, you're giving an organization $100,000 to purchase a piece of property over which, other than someday we might, it doesn't sound like we'll have any legal claim on the property. So if we had some sort of lien in the agreement that said, if we put up 100,000 and this whole thing goes south, the town will get its money back.
So the town won't spend their money until there is an agreement and all the documents have been signed. The town does not necessarily need to be the property owner. That would be up to the community, but we're far away from deciding that tonight.
Well, I think you're not really answering my question either. My question really is, in the documents, will there be protection for the $100,000? Not whether or not we'll own it or they'll ultimately give it to the town or sell it to the town. But what, that 100,000 is like, just here you are. And all you have is people's word and the easements to say you got anything of value for the 100,000. And I'm saying,
What, Peg, you want to?
Yeah, well, so the way a conservation easement works, so again, we would be using that funding for conservation. There would be a two-part closing, and usually this happens simultaneously, where the land is purchased and at the same time the conservation easement is put in place. So we can't get the funds to buy the land from any party, from the town or from VHCB, without agreeing. That's how it works. It will all happen at the same time. It's not as if the land will be purchased and then the easement will go in place months later. It happens simultaneously. And that conservation easement runs with the land. So it's forever restricting that property going forward. It cannot be undone.
It's the only way to permanently protect a piece of property. And the Conservation Commission is simply asking the select board to allow the voters to
We've got to
decide.
stay on topic here, okay?
Okay.
So,
Are there other questions?
well, go ahead, is there others asking?
Yeah, Kurt, is that good for you?
You know, not exactly, but what we're saying then is we're not really giving $100,000 to purchase the land. We're giving $100,000 to purchase the conservation.
To purchase the land and put it into conservation.
Yeah.
Can he call you tomorrow? He's also a reporter, so can he call you tomorrow?
Sure.
So Kurt, I think your questions are sophisticated. Why don't you call Peg at the Upper Valley Land Trust and she can talk to you about how all this works.
Sure.
643-6626.
Great.
I have it on speed dial.
Helen Esmond
Yeah.
has her hand up as well.
Kurt, it's also worth pointing out that the land trust currently holds conservation easements on about 2,000 acres in Hartland, including the Somerset land right behind the park and ride and various other private lands.
How much money did the town put up to ensure those purchases? That's the difference.
We gotta move on.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone here has that answer right now, Kurt. We're gonna let Helen ask a question of them.
Okay, the first thing I want to say is you mentioned a community garden with produce going to Claremont. This isn't a question, this is just saying, I think that it should stay more local. If you have a community garden, there's produce going out somewhere, there's a number of local. Why are you shaking your head, Tom? And what kind of housing did you say was going to go there? I couldn't hear you when you meant what type of housing that was going to be included on the property. Not
There's been over a number of years a discussion about trying to have some housing as part of this property. And we're hearing that there may be difficulty having housing there due to the lack of water. So that right now it's unknown.
Yeah, you don't know what
That
that.
capture that?
And I just want to
Sorry.
comment that I did hear about this project coming up before. When you said you hadn't heard about it before, it has come up a couple of times. And I haven't been here for like 10 or 20 years. And I've heard it come up in the time that I've been here. So thank you for letting me comment.
Yeah, thank you. Stand correct.
Anyone else?
I don't see any other hands raised at the moment.
Okay, then thank you again. And you're welcome to stay. And as we move on to talk about the job description for the town manager.
And maybe just a quick follow, are there any public comments on any other topic?
That's what I called
Oh,
for.
did you? Oh, sorry. Nobody's raised their hand.
Thank you for asking. So a number of meetings ago, we had the discussion and reviewed a new job description for the town manager. We were asked to give some feedback, and tonight what I'd like to do is just share that feedback with each other, and let's see if we can get this finalized, please.
So I'll just point out a couple of things. The last two paragraphs, the disclaimers at the end, so the LCTs. The declaration of inclusion is ours.
There's ours, yeah, that was familiar. Are there disclaimers? necessary or would they be?
Yeah, it's their recommendation, this plan is doing.
Okay.
The rest of it really is, you know, brought forward from the 2017 job description, so all the duties, things like that. Yeah, some grammatical stuff has changed. I think, and, you know, I'm trying to do this from memory, I think I may have inserted something about performance reviews, right, since there was no documentation that that
Can we
was
just
required.
go from page 1 and just go down and see what people have comments?
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to give you the background. So most of their duties are unedited unless there were grammatical issues. With the exception that, you know, some things like performance reviews may have been inserted.
Yeah, and thank you for doing that legwork, Jim. My first sort of observation is under personnel.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. The third bullet talks about a performance management system. We don't have one. We say that we're asking to create, maintain. I think there's nothing wrong there. I just realized it's all brand new.
Right.
You know, and I don't know how to better phrase it. I mean, I would like the select board to review that once it's established. You know, we had so much trouble with the performance review we did for this position.
Yeah,
So
I agree with you. That's absolutely true. We should have some input on this. But it's not a job, that's not a job description item. That's just the negotiation with
the new town manager.
So, in the first paragraph under personnel, it says right now, the town manager may request the assistance of the select board in evaluating and interviewing candidates for department heads.
Yeah.
And I think it should say that, the town manager with a select board designee. Oh, no, I say the town manager with the assistance of a select board designee shall assist with the evaluation interview. I don't think it should be may request. I think we should have,
I'm with you on that. So we
I
can
think it's for the
take that-
department heads.
Yeah.
There should be the town manager and the select board designee.
So we can propose that. I'm not sure if statutorily that holds up. I think the ownership is truly with the town manager, so it's more of a willingness to collaborate. But we can run that by VLCT. But I do have to ask.
Or we can just put it in there and if the.
But we got to make a request here. I'm not gonna be able to take notes on this.
So I got
you
notes
guys,
here.
yeah, have a proposal of what you want to put in to help us send that along with email.
And then I think next sentence is, it says consult with passive, basically VSCT passive, as appropriate regarding adverse employee actions, particularly when conducting terminations. And I think there should be something and report to the select board or consult with past, you know, I don't think that if we're having terminations, we should be adverse employee actions. I think we should be somewhat involved, don't you?
That's covered in personnel policy.
Yeah, we have in the past, if it was a staff person, we were alerted to what was going on.
But there's a process built into the personnel policy that allows employees to come to the select board if there are disputes.
And then, I'm sorry, this develop techniques among municipal employees system, I think that's kind of phooey myself. I think throughout this, if, you know, to create and maintain a management system and so on, that's all in part of that. I mean, I just don't know.
So it's extraneous.
I think it really is extraneous, yeah.
Okay.
And then where we have, instead of, we call it conduct, the next line is conduct employee performance evaluation of all direct reports. Can we just call them direct employees, direct hires? I don't know this, why we call people reports. You see that?
Yeah,
So how about hires?
But once they hired, they're done, right? Direct
actually,
staff.
I thought reports was actually clearer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, I've seen that in job descriptions.
okay, all right,
Yeah.
fine.
Okay, are we ready to go on to operations?
Yep.
I was just confused. I don't know what the right answer is. Who is the road commissioner? Is
So,
that
town manager.
It's a town manager.
town manager? Okay. And then the third through the last bullet point should be, everything should be indented. Because the second bullet point is have charge control and supervision of the following matters. And then you list all the things.
Oh. Oh, that's what you're saying. Yeah, so.
I just wanted to test your dexterity there with your. Any other operations?
No.
Okay, we're going to finance.
So I have inserted in all the finance that he works specifically. So I have worked with the finance director of the town and purchasing, blah, blah, blah. I have worked with the finance director to ensure the expenditure of all special appropriations. You know, I think we should be somewhat explicit, since we do have a finance director, not just a treasurer. Like I have prepared draft budget with assistance from the finance director
Yeah, so-
for the select board.
So
to
here's
review.
what I would say. I would say you're putting the responsibility to make sure that these things happen on the town manager. The town manager can delegate and work with whoever he sees fit to make them happen. I don't think you have to be that explicit.
And what if the town manager doesn't want to do that?
And, you know, we would ask why. Maybe there's a good reason and maybe there's not. Or maybe the position is vacant.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we need the budget, we're not gonna go to finance director, we're gonna go to the town manager and expect it.
All I'm saying is that it's just working with basically your department heads.
I have just a minor change, but if I don't know how to.
It's fine. I mean, you know, whatever you guys want to do.
Under function as general purchasing agent of the town, I understand that. And then purchasing, I wanted to insert as well as overseeing the purchasing of all supplies for every department. Do they actually act? I don't think they have to purchase.
Okay, so it's in a word overseeing.
Yeah. Because, you know, the highway foreman would be potentially just, you know, purchasing salt or purchasing fuel. We just want to make sure.
I don't know if I can write that word, you might have to.
Okay.
send that to me.
Okay. Tom, are you comfortable with that? Sure. Under planning,
I said instead of help, I have assist.
Yeah, again, I think, so that an email.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
And I struck develop long-term solutions for specific town needs. Because down below, I think we talked about, right up top, we talked about long-range strategic planning, capital improvements, so it's sort of the same thing.
Yeah, I can put a minus sign here.
And then I struck on the last sentence, standard operating procedures. And I just said ensure that operating procedure and best practices are in place. I don't know if they actually have standing operating procedures.
Right, I get that, huh? Overseeing. Let's see. Try it. No, no way, it's hieroglyphics.
Well,
Knowledge, skills, and abilities.
I was okay with everything. I struck public relations skills. I don't know how we would. I mean, if they have to do all this other stuff, they're certainly gonna have to have, you know, ability to communicate effectively, verbally, and in writing. Isn't that sort of public relations?
Yeah. And I thought it was ambitious to have working knowledge of the theory and practice of public
Right.
personnel administration.
Right.
That's a bit much.
I'm happy to put some minus signs there.
That's all I have on that page.
Next page, we get into some funkitation with fonts.
Say that again?
We get some funkitation with fonts.
Do
Yeah, so
we?
the
Oh,
first,
yeah, I see it.
see that?
That's the kind of changes.
Yeah.
Okay. Do it.
Under education experience, I have public administration or business management or related degree. You know, as we found, we don't necessarily. And then also given our experience, most immediate experience, we have 5 years prior experience in government operations at a supervisory level or higher. And I struck at supervisory level or higher with preference given to, you know, this gives us more. At a supervisory level or higher, 5 years previous experience in government operations.
Okay, why strike it?
Well, because we kind of found out that some of our candidates actually don't have that experience. So. I mean, it's a minor point because,
Yeah.
you know.
So you're just saying take out supervisory
Or
level.
higher.
Do people feel comfortable with that?
I think so, because it's again, looking at the profiles of the resumes we were looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I would just, you know, what ideally would you want in the future, you know? You could say preferred, you know, preferred 5 years prior experience, you know, but do you really want to just take it out and not have supervisory experience be a preference?
Yeah, I think not having it gives us the chance to you know, to do what we're doing, you know, creating a mentoring situation. I don't have any changes until the town manager also serves as.
I have under town residency. I added at the end of that sentence. Or request an exemption with board concurrence.
All right, so there's another part of that. Do we want to hold 30 minutes there, or do we want?
No, that's what I put in, or request an exemption with the board's concurrence.
Okay, instead of 30 minutes.
Yeah, that way if it's more than 30 minutes,
So you're basically saying skip that whole second sentence.
no, what I'm saying is that we should keep it in there.
Yeah.
But if someone wants to request an exemption, you know, they could
Okay.
request an
So
exemption.
unless.
So I have, you know, I have, or the candidate or the town manager may request an exemption with board approval.
It takes me 15 minutes to get to the office. So
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, on a day like today.
Go ahead, Phil.
Town health officer in the past has actually not been the town manager.
Okay.
Who's the bad?
It was Beach Conger, it was Dave Singer.
L&B.
was that,
No, I don't think I don't know that.
Most town managers are also the town health officer unless they can. So many of these things I was thinking or designee. Like, I don't know what a town service officer is.
That's funny, I didn't know either.
well, I think the town service officer is the one who would, if somebody comes to the request for help from Kent, America, and they're the ones that help determine, the service officer helps determine the eligibility.
But we don't have that position in town, do we?
I think it's a statutory one.
Oh, okay, I don't know.
It may not be, but
Okay,
So I had a question mark next to that.
yeah.
when I was in grade school, the health officer was Herbie Shepherd's wife who comes to school and smoking a cigarette.
Oh, there you go. I thought flood hazard regs, if we had a permit person, then that would be, so I put or designee after that. So, you know, if we go back to having I don't know what was the position called? Permit coordinator?
Ordinance.
Ordinance coordinator?
Ordinance, and then they had the permits. under
Yeah.
that.
So I would imagine that that would be a role for that person. And I'm sure the flood hazard regs are difficult. So I'm not saying we shouldn't give it to the town manager, or it could be
that experience.
what's that?
He has that experience.
Who?
John.
Well, we're lucky for that, you know.
All right, so I think what I'm hearing is for a couple of these, it's unless designated to another individual.
Whatever.
That would be good.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All right, you know what, why don't I just put that at the top? Town manager also serves as unless designated to another.
Yeah,
There you go.
I think that would
Great.
cover.
That's
yeah.
perfect.
Okay. Do we need to identify the Transportation Advisory Committee? Is that part of Two Rivers? Or do
Yes,
they just?
that's their tack. Yep.
Okay.
And do we still have a civil defense coordinator, or do we have a town emergency coordinator,
I
management?
know we have the
coordinator?
emergency management.
And who does that? Is that somebody from the fire department?
No, that's, Dave is charged, excuse me, the town manager was charged with coordinating, which he did with the fire department, EMS and the churches and.
Yeah, so we have plans like an emergency.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. I just don't know who's doing it.
I think the title may be outdated, civil defense.
I think you may want to put emergency management coordinator, not civil defense. Reminds me of the days I had to go under my desk in grammar school, you know? You guys are always keeping on.
Okay. There we go. Smiling.
That's all I have.
That's all I have to.
So just to go back into it for just a second. So get the invitation, get a couple of things to take out here. I've got the overseas scribbled in for purchasing supplies. The things that need to get deleted are pretty easy. Related degree, supervisory level font. the board exception, there was something else though, Tom, on the first page, I think, that I didn't try to write down.
Well, just do what you can and then just circulate it. We can all just take a peek at it. Is that what you want?
That would be fine.
Oh, was this developed? That was a strike? Did you get
I got
that?
that. So there was a wording change.
I think I got overruled by Phil.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you again. That's been something that we needed to get done for quite a while. The next item, we could glad to come back.
I'm having amnesia here.
What's that?
Did we adopt the select board minutes?
Yeah.
We did, right?
Yeah, we went through all that.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't realize that Cheyenne wasn't here when I got started.
She's online.
Oh, she is online. Okay. Hello, Cheyenne.
Hi, Cheyenne.
But she's muted.
Hi.
Sorry, everyone abandoned you out there. I think we're on the plot.
Come on, Lena.
Oh. All right.
We're gonna talk about the select board report. I just have one food for thought comment.
Sure, if it's not too late.
A lot of that I can't answer. My food for thought comment is I believe the listserv issues in the past. Keep the whole thing positive. Yeah, don't even bring it up.
Well, I put that in to give you, us, kudos that we actually, during that period, we managed to just
No, yeah.
keep our ethics on high.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's like, it's one, it's the only sentence in the report that carries a negative connotation.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might be better off with a service.
Yeah, I kind of lost it here.
Is that your first paragraph, second paragraph? It's the,
Yeah, there it is. I said, okay. So maybe I just take that out and.
take it out, yeah, that's what I would agree.
I wouldn't give
Just take it out.
any unnecessary life.
Yeah.
And I would like to leave in, I want to thank my board.
Yes,
colleagues.
absolutely, absolutely. That's fine.
Yeah, we'll accept that.
I think I'm still feeling the stinging from some of those. so
Yes.
that's why Okay, any other thoughts on the select board report?
No, that's good.
Okay,
Thank you for doing that, Phil.
you're welcome. Okay, so the next item of business are the surplus monies which are in the budget that we have designated this coming fiscal year to address 4 items. The discussion really is that how do we, if anything, what do we do with those monies at this time?
Yeah.
I will preface the discussion by saying, Martin asked me to convey that his opinion is to leave them as we have them now. And should we need to address, if they are still not used at the end of the fiscal year 25, that we should make it very clear we have to do something at that point. So, Jim, you had the discussion with Martin and Mr. Barlow.
Yeah, so it kind of started with VLCT and the auditors, right, and Two Rivers. Right, so the question, we asked the auditors when they gave the audit report, what do we do with this? And they said you can, designate it to specific projects. And I forget now if it was VLCT or Two Rivers that said.
I think it was
Do what the
Two
auditors
Rivers
told
with
you.
VLCT.
So one of those said, ask the auditors, the other said you're gonna get I think a different question, whether you ask an auditor or a lawyer. Right? So we asked a lawyer. And there was basically 4 paths, right? Treat the money as additional revenue and expense in fiscal year 25. But when you do that, your budget now goes from whatever it was, 2 million to 3 million, right? It's to me, when you're carrying it as kind of an existing account balance, in my mind, it overinflates things, and again, makes it hard to track. What if somewhere else in your budget, you spent more than you thought you would, right? Now, does that decrement from what you thought you were gonna have reserved for these projects, right? If all of a sudden you're gonna spend $300,000 on damaged roads, does that mean your project money just got eaten up by that expense? So I get a little nervous having it in the current budget or on an uncovered balance. I think it's too easy to spend, personally. The select board could just move the money now to reserve funds. We could have a vote, warn it, vote on it and do it. But it lacks kind of full transparency, right? Although there was a lot of transparency when we did the whole ARPA project, right? There's a lot of community involvement. Or we can stick with the plan to put the articles in front of the voters and say, here's the number. We want to reserve this for this for the culvert. We want to reserve this for Rec Center Damon Hall, and we want to reserve this for something else.
Right.
Or just put, just reserve the whole thing and say, here are the projects that we're done.
Yeah, which is where we are now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, my first instinct was just vote on it and do it, us, right? But now, after kind of thinking that through, I think it is more transparent to show the town, and say, here's what we're doing.
And Jim, I've said this before, that during the discussions of the handoff of the ARPA committee recommendations to the select board, we made those public statements of, here's how we're going to use the Jennyville culvert, the Damon Hall study, the Rec Center study, and the Quitchy Road study.
Right.
So we're on our way to doing those things, which is what I think where Martin is coming from is, that we should have that wrapped up.
Well, the studies are just one component, right? Now we've got to continue, because the idea around Rec Center and Damon Hall wasn't just a study, it was to actually.
It's to fix the things that could be.
So I'm a very budget-oriented person, and I like my buckets lined up.
Sure.
And I like the idea of put it all in a bucket to cover these 3 projects, and then divvy it out as needed as the bills come in.
Right.
over a single fiscal year.
Or however many fiscal, like if you put in a reserve fund, it's over however many fiscal years it takes to spend it.
Yeah, it's funny, we're cleaning up reserve funds now.
Yeah, to create, but I think there is technically an ARPA reserve fund that we could probably just reuse.
Yeah.
And so the lawyer did say that he had helped Dave draft an article similar to this in the past.
So what does Martin want to do?
If I understand it correctly, he would like to leave the monies,
I think it's number 2.
treat it as an unencumbered balance, rolling year to year. This will roll year to year, but can also make things a little messy if the current year runs a deficit or other reasons, which Jim brought to our attention. So I think what I heard from Martin is that we leave it as it is for fiscal year 25. And in the next budget season, if there are unspent monies from those 4 project areas, then we need to put it in the reserve fund.
But you carry a risk. You have a risk that
What's the risk?
you have a budget surplus. Voters wanted to use it to pay down taxes. That risk exists, and that can be brought up at a time. If you're rolling it year to year as a surplus, right?
Well,
Fine, but just lower taxes by none of the projects get done. So I don't know that there's any one right answer here.
yeah,
So I think for this
Let's say
fiscal
is
year
the
though, for FY 25, all we're doing are studies. Queechy Road, we're not gonna do construction on Queechy Road in FY 25.
No, you're right, but we are gonna start fixing Damon Hall.
right, but we would use expenditures for Damon Hall and the rec center potentially, hopefully we will stick going on the water penetration here. I think the rec center may become a bigger thing that we can actually.
In the Jennyville culvert is knocking on our door, and we don't know how much any of this costs. It could be between the culvert and the rec center and Damon Hall, who are already over budget.
Yeah. I wish Martin was here to explain what his theory is for that.
So we're bringing this up tonight because this is potentially an article.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the article would read what? How? What would it
I
read?
think there was a draft.
We don't have it as an article now.
Right.
Oh, it's not in yet?
No.
I thought it was.
No, we have enough articles now, especially when we're moving that monies out of some reserve funds to close them down. So this could become very confusing to the general public.
Yeah.
Do we, I'm not familiar with our accounting practices to know if we actually encumber.
We do, because they do modify the code, so you do encumber.
So why can't we just encumber these monies?
I think you've already done that.
Which would protect them.
I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
So that might be a question.
You mean like designate where it's gonna use?
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
I think you're,
For years, the school board, their surplus, they put an article, shall we put it into our reserve fund? There's an article on their warrant.
So another, so that could be a question for the auditor too, because they said designate the money. Now I don't know legally what that means. Is it just a select board vote or?
Yeah. It just feels like I'm getting ready to suggest we kick this down to the next meeting.
I am too. I'm totally confused.
But what would, that's fine, I'm good with that. But what's gonna make it clear between now and then? What steps have to be
I
taken?
think, Martin, someone needs to develop the article.
Or say the encumbering option is very clear and we'll see it on the books.
Well, So when I say encumber, what I'm saying is, say you have $10,000, and you hire someone on a contract for $10,000. You've encumbered that money now, but you haven't spent it. See, and so then, as
Sure,
you know
sure,
what I'm saying?
sure.
So
Another,
that's-
another way of saying that is you've created a contract.
And here's the
It's
pot of
like-
money
it's like-
associated
It's like
with
a
that
purchase
contract.
order, you're
Exactly.
committed to
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
And then.
So now it's an encumber.
And then the trial balance would sort of
Yeah.
show it as doing.
So it could become an accounts payable.
And I'm writing out of my knowledge of.
Yeah. So,
I also know encumbering from a large budget perspective of actually putting monies such that they are in a fund or whatever, that they're.
But to me, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I don't know all the gymnastics that go on there, but it sounds to me a lot like put it on the reserve fund. Yes.
well, that's what it sounds like.
Okay, we have a potential meeting on January 27th. That would not be a regular meeting, so we could bring this. I suppose we want to do it beforehand if there's going to be an article.
Why do we have to have these articles?
I think you're already running out of time. I think, they have to go, I believe they have to go 30 days just for the town meeting.
Just up 30 days before town meeting, but they.
I think there's a thing today I saw in the league, January
January
17th.
Printer.
I have. They
So,
have to
yeah.
be approved by January 27th. That's the date that I had from Martin. Maybe that was just the day he was hoping to get together.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's the 30-day deadline, but then there's also the fact that you don't know how busy the printer is with their turnaround time could be a week.
Okay, it was voter back petitions had to be in by January 18th.
What's that, petition articles?
Yeah, this is the league just sent this out this afternoon.
I know the petitions for running for office are 6 Mondays prior to town meeting. The 6th Monday.
Okay. All right. What are we doing? We're gonna table this?
I think.
If we have to have a special meeting next week or something to get this done?
Yeah.
The other thing you can do, if it helps, is invite Jim Barlow for 15 minutes to just talk through.
Yeah, and it's interesting that, as you said, my reaction was let somebody, the auditor, but you're saying they didn't have a clear opinion.
They don't.
Right.
Okay.
Well, so what Jim did say is there's no statutory obligation here about how to handle surplus. Right? So.
No, but there is concern that the federal government is starting to claw back some of this money if towns don't do.
But this
something.
money's spent. It's
No, I think there's something else that's made it even a little bit more complicated.
Okay.
So, but
Sure.
and so maybe it's best to just call the league and see if they have some language that you could use for an article. All right, I want to keep going because I really do. I gotta go home and blah, and I gotta go to a
I
meeting
don't want
tomorrow
to be
morning.
funny, but in terms of federal reporting, we've reported the ARPA.
I get that, I get
So
that.
it's done.
Okay,
Right now, it's just a-
we're under new business. I'd like to combine the conversation of item 3 into 4. So I'll provide us a quick update on where we are with the lighting. And then let's get right down to the articles. There's yeah, okay. So the update on the lighting in the past couple of weeks, Martin and I updated the board that he and I had a meeting with Dan Peck to review Damtek's plan for the pedestrian lighting. I want to make sure that people aren't thinking traffic lights. There are 11 lights that are coming up. We then met with Pat Travers from who was part of the project with the second engineering firm. I'm drawing a blank of which of the name, because we didn't have costs for the lights that had no conduit to them. So we had to get some estimates of what it would cost to dish power to the lights on that part. So we have more information. The project still has to be handled, and it's likely that our new town manager is going to have some work to do with getting this really done. Ultimately, there's a decision of both the pole, whether it's leased or purchased, as well as the luminaire on top of the light itself. But in order to sort of move things forward, we have an estimate of about $120,000 to $150,000 right now for 11 lights. It may come in less, it may be more. So what Martin is proposing is that we have an article asking specifically, here, 50. You have it in front of you, Rick? Yeah.
150,000.
Could you read it?
Sure. Shall the town vote to use monies from the capital reserve fund up to $150,000 for lights for the 3-corner intersection project? Any grant money for this project received but will be returned to the capital reserve.
So,
All right, so go ahead.
so I think we've covered our bases, that we have up to, and hopefully it will be less. And we also, we have been pursuing grants. The first sort of little pocket that Two Rivers looked into it didn't pan out. So I hope that we would be replenishing a large percentage of whatever we spend.
Here's what I'm struggling. I'm struggling with why, we took down a couple of lights. Why we need 11 lights?
There's a light at each end of a crosswalk. So there's 2, 4, 6, 8. There's a light at the crosswalk down by the library drive where there is nothing there today. There's a light going north on 5, and there's also a light off the sidewalk to the green space in that part. And I really don't know if 11 includes the light right out here that's on a pole, with the idea that the only reason that pole is there is to hold the light, and the power comes across the street. So if we would replace that, I think we have that one. I think we have the underground conduit too, no wire, but the conduit that would enable that pole to come down as well.
But do we need all that light?
I think
it's a pretty bright intersection.
I think-
We're gonna have neighbors complaining.
So
they can't see
I
it.
think for today, I guess we should just decide whether we're gonna agree with 150. I think we can, when we get closer to this, I think we can decide what we want to do, but
correct, absolutely correct.
but just right now, I think not knowing whether it's 10, 9.
Right, and I can't answer any of the details,
I don't
whether
know.
rent versus lease versus buy. There's
Right.
lots of things that will vary the cost of.
I'm just thinking like the lights weren't there before. And how many people?
I had a meeting across the street in the Corey office last night, and I came out at around 6 o'clock.
Right.
I couldn't see out there. It was overcast. It was dangerous. So I rather err on the side of lighting that has, we've already had the photometric studies done, so we know it's not too much light or too little.
Yeah, fine, let the voters decide, but I think you ought to submit the lighting plans, make it public information, so.
I think we're gonna need to have storyboards and stuff for that. I think I agree with that.
Okay, interesting. Okay. So the other two articles would be what we discussed earlier tonight with shall the town vote to transfer $100,000 from the capital reserve fund to the conservation fund?
I hate that is, can we just back up and make sure that the other articles are right, because Article 4 doesn't look right to me.
Should we go through them all?
The first one I have a question on is Article 4, and actually it might be the only one I have a question on. I guess I got.
What's wrong with 4? That's what I asked for.
From the planning fund to the planning commission fund?
Yeah, well, or to the planning commission, I don't know, whatever they call it.
Yeah, there's no planning commission fund. So you'd have to pick an actual fund to transfer this money to.
Okay, so we have to wordsmith that.
Okay,
but the idea is that.
is to just get those Act 200 monies out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Why don't we just say to the general fund?
Yeah, the general, there's I think it's called the fund balance reserve fund. You have to look up the exact.
Okay, well, that's gonna be different fund.
I don't know what that is, the funds.
So Article 5 is a work in progress with the Adequacy Health Foundation. I don't think that number's not solid yet.
What is the, and not that I'm not in favor of it, but what is the special needs support center of the Upper Valley? Is that new?
No,
What is that?
I guess that most every year.
Oh, it is? Okay, fine. If it's long-standing, I just don't remember seeing that. Okay.
Fund balance reserve fund would be where general fund type monies go.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, there's lots in Article 6, lots of items in Article 6, but
Yeah.
there's no change.
I hate to say this, I'm just having one thought, but I know it's only $1,800, but should we put in the cemetery fund? Because we want to have some projects kick out of there.
Well, we could use it to pay Bruce, not that he's gonna need $1,800 to help us get that rolling.
Yeah, that would be a great use for it.
Yeah, so I think,
So we're back to Article 4.
so I'll make a motion that for Article 4, the destination fund be the cemetery fund.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay. We ready to go on to Article 7?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything.
There's nothing we can change there, right?
As far as I know.
No, so, fine.
So my only question on Article 8 probably just goes back to Mark. I don't think during the budget process, we saw the number that gets us to 2967 of taxes.
Usually when it's on the warning, those are left blank because you've got to add in your gimmies, your special articles, to come up with a budget and an actual figure.
But I think that was.
Without appropriations. Right, you're saying? You're saying the budget number?
The budget number is usually left blank. And then if all the articles in 7 and potentially 6 pass, you'd add that amount to your budget.
So I think the wording here is authorize general fund without appropriations of Yeah,
We should just look at last year's.
3.6,
What's
it's
last?
very similar to last year's. The one that's in here is similar to last year.
Because Morton had presented a budget with the appropriations, and he asked us at the last meeting, we backed it out.
Right.
So the 3.679 number is general fund without appropriations and highway fund combined. All right, so I double checked that now,
Okay,
and that came out okay, I didn't circle.
and I think to Tom's point, let's see what the articles have said historically.
Yeah. I looked at the old one, I can just grab it now. The town report there.
Just doesn't sound right.
Oh, no, they're all done.
And then we want to add the Lucy.
There they go. So I did eyeball the town report from last year, and it was worded pretty much the same. I could improve the wording.
Okay, I'll make a note on that one. So we don't need a motion or, oh, we're not really making motions anyway tonight.
Well, just for the cemetery fund.
Yeah.
But the number that I don't know how to verify is the 2,967,000 raised by taxes. We haven't seen anything, I don't think, that backs into that number in terms of, during the budget review. So it might be right, I just don't know how to verify.
Of course, that number, this is your budget up here, but that number is going to be affected anyway by your special articles.
Mhm. Yeah, right. It would be.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to hold off on Article 9 and suggest tonight that we need an additional article. We danced around this at an earlier meeting and then chose not to do it, but I'm feeling strongly that we should have an article that breaks out the policing and safety and at the floor of the meeting have the reminder that we've had a committee to look at this. We've had discussions, we've had the townwide, but here's your last chance to recognize that because it is a new budget item. I would suggest that we leave a budget line of whatever we're doing today. And then the big increase, we break out as an article.
I think you might have to. I don't know if you have to think about that with a lawyer or not. I mean, the reality is
We can do it.
we're not transferring money.
I went to the
No.
LCT today.
Right.
It's specifically, thank you for the voicemail. In response to your question, the select board essentially controls the warning for town meeting and consequently can place any article before the voters for the consideration that it wishes, needing only the approval of a majority of its total membership ourselves in a duly warned meeting.
I agree with that 100%.
Okay.
My point is more, these other articles, you're transferring money from a reserve fund to pay for something, right? The policing, you're not transferring money from anywhere. You're putting it in your budget is an expense that's gonna be ongoing, right? So I don't see a benefit in having an article for that.
Because
Budget.
we're putting it up front and center that this is what we're doing.
Right, we've included in the budget, so I just don't know what you buy by having a separate article.
I think more consciousness, I said this a little bit earlier this evening. I think the town tax rate is going to be pretty steep this year, and it's not going to be.
It's not us.
Not us. We're not going to gain much traction by saying not us, but that's the reality. And so I want to make sure that we're as transparent as possible, that this is what we're
Yeah.
doing.
I think you do that during the budget presentation, and you say, here's where we're spending your money, we're spending, we have to pay more. We increase the paving budget. Public safety is an issue, we're increasing the public safety budget by, doing more policing. I think just say, these are your big line items, the other big ones are salary benefits.
Right. The only difference is that's great for those that attend town meeting, but those that come in and vote by Australian ballot, they're not gonna have that. They're not
But then, or on any article. But we're gonna, don't we do a meeting before that? We do a presentation before.
No, that's
The school board does.
We don't.
I thought, maybe I'm a false memory, I thought David did do something.
They have, the school has to have a public hearing because their articles are by Australian ballot.
Yeah.
We don't have to have a public hearing unless we have Australian ballot articles, like a bond or something. And so you've got 150 people deciding your business, basically.
Okay, so again, we're not voting tonight, but just Tom, what do you think? Clyde, what do you think?
Yeah, Clyde.
You mean, the police article?
Yeah.
I guess, it's a, what do you call a double-edged sword here, because we've already added that money. It is a budget figure in there, right?
Yeah.
It's still a work in progress.
Yeah, work in progress. And the only advantage to pulling it out as a separate article is that you do highlight it, that this is what we're planning on doing, and this is the reason for it.
But
So,
we gotta revote on the budget amounts then, which are already locked in, and the town report's being put together.
So what are you saying then?
well, basically,
Do you think it's a good idea to point it out, or?
I guess you pointed, I would go for pointing it out in the presentation, that, yes, this is in the budget. If we don't do it, the money's gonna be, we won't have spent any money, but, I guess I'd let sleeping dogs lie, so to speak. And if the way we present budgets, it could be explained at that time, because, I guess the only other way, if it was a separate one, you might end up with a huge attendance that you couldn't fit in this building, so.
Yeah. Tom, your thoughts?
Just what's the ramifications of it, say, not passing on Article 8?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I'm following.
So Article 8 is basically saying this is how much we're going to be spending around the time, the general fund, the town highway fund, which the police budget is already incorporated into that.
Okay.
And so say now,
Well,
then it gets voted down.
they
what
do have
happens?
the ability to amend the article and cut out that amount of money.
But it's going to be after the fact, because this is an article and it's going to be done. by
No, I mean,
us.
they do it at town meeting. They would amend the article and say, we'll change it by $140,000.
I think if I could answer your question, the
Sure.
idea I had is that in the budget, we would keep a number that would be a little bit of growth of what we've done for the last couple of years.
Oh.
So what we would highlight in the article would be, here's the increase to $100-something thousand from the 60, whatever that number was.
I think it's too late, but we already approved the budget as is. You can't go back and reopen the budget. I mean, you approved it, we all approved it with that number in there, except for Clyde, because you didn't give the staff enough money.
Well, I think then, I guess as Clyde was saying, then I guess we should just highlight it.
Yeah, I agree.
And just be really, really transparent that
Which is
way.
gonna be a little tricky, we're gonna be able to, if we rewind the clock and watch David's budget presentation, he went through a lot of detail. not sure we need to go through that much detail.
No, that was painful.
We're gonna have a,
Too much of a dog and pony show.
we're gonna be able to sell the highlights.
Yeah, okay, we can figure that out.
Yeah, I think we have some work to do there.
Okay,
on that-
but-
on that part.
You okay with that?
Yeah, especially as Jim pointed out,
Yeah,
that we actually
okay.
approved that.
All right, okay, let's do 10 so I can go home.
Wait, we have other agenda items after this.
Yeah, I'm going.
We'll just continue the discussion with conservation from next time we, $100,000.
Yeah, I think we should do a straw poll tonight, while it's fresh.
Which way you want to see that?
Some kind of a straw poll on it. Where are we feeling about it?
Right now?
Yeah. I don't know why we would postpone it.
I walked in here not wanting to spend the money, right? And I think there's more important things to spend the money on. However, when I saw that they're gonna potentially lose their trails, that's making me want to put it in front of the voters for.
No, we don't necessarily know if you lose the trails.
Well, if it gets sold, or the property gets sold to
So
someone else.
I
right?
chose not to sort of talk about this, to make sure that you were hearing what they were saying. Twin Pine Housing has pulled out of the housing piece. Because it's been labeled, this project's been labeled as a dual function project, housing and conservation. The Vermont Housing and Conservation Board is now kind of like saying, what do we do here? There's a lot of variables, and that's what I worry about right now. Do I want to conserve the property? Yes, I do. Was it, in my mind, a really great thing when the housing was there? Yes. Now that the housing may be gone, it's not. I also talked to Peg about, she referred to it tonight, that there could be some language in the easement that would enable for us to put the highway garage over there. If the land should come to the town with all the easements, they can do language that would allow a municipal structure to be on that. We need a new highway garage. I think I'm reluctant to sort of see it built on the floodplain. So,
Is the industrial area floodplain? Because we already have one down there.
is it across the street, the floodplain?
No, I'm just saying.
No, he's talking about down like Depot.
Because I mean, why do you want a highway garage in the village? I mean, you want to put that out of sight.
I don't know, but I don't want to lock us out of that possibility.
Right. Like, well, that's.
Going down the Ferry Road
I agree with that.
can be, it is what it is. So what I was really struck with is that they haven't started any capital campaign to sort of get money. I didn't know until today that the 100,000 kind of was, a fifth of the cost. When Gordon brought it up, it was just a number. So I just see that there's still a lot of work that has to be done.
There's a ton of work. The thing that bothers me is that if the deal falls through and the whole thing gets sold off, Hartland Trails loses all those trails. Which, it's business, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that was the unfortunate loss.
Okay, so again, we're not going to make a vote tonight, but I to some degree, let's put an article up and let the voters decide.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at this now. I mean, I wasn't at the beginning of the meeting, but if they're gonna start doing outreach and the like, but I agree. I think that they're just starting this process and it's gonna take some time. And what I was asking is, a lot of times these land trusts, place conservation easements on things because it's important, either for forestry, habitat, things like this. And these lands are fairly marginal. I mean, granted, they're great for recreational uses, you know, and then the other thing is, I think that the 20 to 25% as a town contribution is fairly high.
Yeah.
They generally don't contribute that much, but, you know, you know, if I had my druthers, I wish we had more information and we had a better understanding. I certainly am gonna have a lot of questions about this because I'm interested in housing here in possibly fire department. So how is this?
Only if the housing doesn't fly.
Yeah, or something, you know, I
House
mean,
is
what,
my first.
well, I guess my, thing I was trying to get is, can the town have some influence as far as some of the use?
Yeah.
Given that we're gonna be a significant contributor to this process, whether we can or we can't, I don't know. But I think we need to also look at for our own interests as well, as long as we can maintain the trail system and all those things.
What are your thoughts?
The article, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, actually, it's kind of an oxymoron here, not to have some of that property for housing when we want to, quote, have our housing in our village areas.
Well, we as a select board, I'm assuming would pursue a head grant to increase the sidewalk to that.
Yeah.
So, and I see that as part of the village, because of the sidewalk, if we're talking about accessing walking trails. There's a lot of-
One thought, if the article changed, instead of just doing a transfer, if you change the text to say, will you authorize the select board to do a transfer in the future if it can reach, you know, an agreement with the Vermont Land Trust that's in the best interest of the town.
Yeah, because the way it reads now is we're putting 100,000 into the conservation fund.
So maybe instead of doing that, give us the authority to do it later if we think it's a good idea. How do you word that legally?
It was actually reading that way, and then when it came back out, this time, it was back to the conservation fund.
So I think you don't guarantee it. You just give us the ability to debate the project and approve funds later. Right.
Okay.
But they're looking for some commitment from the town.
Right, but how can you give the commitment if you don't understand all the?
That was my point.
Right.
Who's gonna talk to Pat?
No one, because we're not having an action here tonight.
Yeah, it's just a discussion.
But we need to make sure next time we meet, we have to have all our articles lined up.
Right.
And if we're suggesting tonight that this is going to be an article, but we want to change it, I think we need to.
But the only change that I had is like an internal change, that the select board will hold the money. And
That we will have the money in reserve, once they reach their funding goals.
yes.
Earmarked for that purpose, if it comes to fruition.
Right.
So it's gonna be something with the funding rules and that we have a contract that we're willing to adopt.
Yeah, I think that shows what Upper Valley Land Trust was asking for tonight. They wanted to be able to say the town is on board. That would show the town is on board. Okay.
I mean, it's hard. There's so many things we've spent money on. Like not even counting wooden bridges and.
My opening comment is that what a time to ask for this, you know, and there's never a really good time.
The life safety issues with the rec center are probably the highest priority.
Yeah, very much so.
Liability.
Yeah, and we have a lot of people. Okay, I'm not aware of any correspondence tonight. With that said, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.
8:13.
Sorry,